Welcome to the Phoenix College Podcast. With us, we have Hunter from baseball, Logan from basketball. We'll start with Hunter right away. Hunter, tell us a little bit about yourself. How'd you end up at Phoenix College?
Yeah, kind of interesting sequence of events. I played Division I baseball, born and raised in Arizona, and I actually played in this conference at over at Glendale. And when I transferred to the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley, a lot of things happened. Like adversity hit for the first time, and I'd never had that happen. You know, I'd always been the best player on the one of the better teams in the state, and now there's just a bunch of dudes, right? And so facing that adversity was really good. We won the WAC that year. I got released, and then I ended up transferring to Ottawa. COVID hits, so now I'm kind of like thinking, what am I going to do? Am I going to play or coach or get away from the game? And I just decided, I'm going to get away from the game and try something different, see more of life, and tried to start my own business, got a job, and kind of went down that road. And 2 years later, my high school coach actually reached out to me, and he was like, hey, man, hope all is well. Let's grab coffee. And I'm like, perfect. Yeah, that'd be awesome. So went and had coffee, and he's like, hey, I run this whole organization, which I actually played for growing up. And he's like, can you help me coach my 13U majors team, which is like one of his better teams? And I'm like, sure, absolutely. He's got 2 tournaments left. And went out there, fell in love with it, posted on social media that, hey, I'm back into coaching. And then John Huizinga up at the Fuel Factory in North Phoenix runs a private training facility for baseball players. And there's been over 300 professional athletes that have trained in there. And he hit me up, and he was like, hey, man, I love what you're doing. Would you want to work at Fuel Factory? And I was like, absolutely, that's a dream. So ended up going over there, talking to him, did the summer program. They run a 10-week college and youth summer program. So ran that, started doing lessons. And my mentor over the past couple years kind of taught me something. He goes, your network is your net worth. And he goes, the people that you interact with, the people you know, are very important. And he said, you're only 5 people away from knowing anyone. And so I asked John, I said, hey, man, I would greatly appreciate it if you had any connections. I'd love to get into coaching, high school, college, pro, whatever. And Scott and John Huizinga, Scott's the head coach of the baseball team. He reached out to John, and next thing you know, I'm down at Phoenix College and coaching the Bears. So it's been a dream. I'm in love with it, and I feel like I'm very blessed with what I get to do.
Yeah, glad you're here. Welcome to the Bears. And Logan, what brings you to the Bear Nation? How'd you get here?
Yeah, so I got here, came the year after COVID. My girlfriend was going to ASU at the time. We were living in California. That's where I'm from. And she was going to go to grad school at ASU, so we were moving out here. I tried to get on with ASU as a grad assistant, and shout out to Coach Rosenthal from the coaching staff there. Chopped it up with me, but they just didn't have anything available for a GA spot. So we were looking at a couple places to live, my girlfriend and I, and PC was literally down the street. So reached out to Coach Easton, sent him an email, and he responded, and one thing led to another, and ended up over here at PC.
Well, awesome. I brought you guys together for a couple reasons. You guys are very similar, whether you know it or not. I don't think you guys, first time you met was like a week ago. That's how busy we are in sport here. It's a lot of work to do with our individual sports, but you guys are very similar in a lot of ways as far as the way you think, power of now, just a lot of like the future of coaching, I think, is coming from you guys. I like how you guys bring a different perspective, and I'm always trying to learn, and that's why I bring you guys together. I want to show you guys a video, and then we're going to talk about it.
Want to be a great player if you play every single day, 2-3 hours, every single day, over the course of a year. How much better are you getting? Most kids will play maybe, an hour and a half, 2 days a week.
Right.
Do the math on that. It's not going to get it done. It's not going to get it done, right? So if you're obsessively training 2-3 hours every single day over a year, over 2 years,
Really accelerate.
you make quantum leaps, man.
Thoughts?
Legend.
Yeah, for sure.
No, I mean, I definitely agree with what he's saying there. I think that when he was talking about that, that kind of reminded me back to like growth mindset stuff with Carol Dweck, in the sense that everything that you're doing with the process is going to lead to the outcome, right? So like that's kind of what he's talking about with training. The thing that always stands out to me with Kobe is the volume, or like the amount he talks about with training. Like, just like he said there, even, you know, some kids will maybe train for an hour, hour and a half, but he's talking about doubling that, right? And that was kind of his whole thing, was like he's always trying to get better, and other people are too, but he's just going to do more of it. His volume is going to be significantly higher than you, and that those quantum leaps he's talking about is because he's putting in exponentially more work than you over time.
For sure. I listened to this guy, Ed Milet, and he was saying, you're not going to get your goals, but you're going to get your standards. And to me, that's just phenomenal right there, because Kobe Bryant held himself to a standard of excellence.
Right.
And if you love the game, like, to me, when I was playing, I kind of disappeared when I was hitting or training. Like, it wasn't like I had to go there. I got to. It was the best part of my day. So you love it. Like,
it ain't even like work.
No.
It's just like you're just doing it. You're just playing, basically,
Yep.
having fun.
Exactly. Playing. I think we got away from that, you know, chasing trophies and chasing got to be better than everyone else. And it's like, the point of the game is to play.
Facts.
Right. And yeah, we want to win. We want to play hard. But at the end of the day, like, it's just a game.
Facts.
So.
Facts.
So dealing with the athletes we have today, what do you think the greatest challenges are when you're dealing with the student athletes and convincing them to put in the work ethic that they're maybe not putting enough time into their sport?
I would say it's individual, because I look back and I worked hard, like really, really hard. And the more that I've learned, like, I do think that you need to work, and I think that you need to put in the time. Malcolm Gladwell from Outlier said minimum 10,000 hours of practice, of intense practice, and that will get you to mastery.
Key word on that too. Sorry to interrupt, but just key word, the intense, the focused practice. It often gets muddled up where it's just 10,000, but it's got to be 10,000 quality hours.
For sure. And if you quantify that, that's 3 hours a day for 10 years. And so who is committed, right? We sometimes underestimate what we can do in a year, right? But we underestimate what we can do in 10 years, and we overestimate what we can do in 1 year. And it's like you said, like the process, trusting that process. And over time, that compounding interest just builds and builds and builds. And then one day you're Kobe Bryant or, you know, Tom Brady or whatever. And it didn't come from just, they weren't born. Mm-hmm. It was built.
Right. Right. And I think along with that, it's like, definitely agree. It's more individual based, right? Like at the end of the day, it's the individual player, and you can't generalize with saying all these kids, because it's really just the individual on a case-by-case basis. But I think, number one, what stands out to me is we just talked about it, like, it's got to be looked at as playing, because that's what it is. Like, you're just playing your game. Like the kid when you were in 5th grade and you were playing your sport, and there was that one kid who was just really good, like he probably just played all the time, whether it was like in an actual game or he was quote-unquote training with a coach or his parent or something, or even by himself, but it was just playing. Like, that's how he looked at it. And I think that first and foremost kind of has to be the emphasis, because it gets people wanting to come back, right? Now it's not like it's being forced on them. They just want to come, and they can really put their whole soul and spirit into it. I think along with that, once you kind of have that foundation established, the training has to be super purposeful. And that's like what you just talked about with Gladwell with the 10,000 hours, 10,000 quality hours. And it's like, you can do 10,000 hours in basketball. You can do 10,000 hours of dribbling work, which is great. And you'll probably have a super tight handle with nobody guarding you. But like, if you want to have handles that you can actually use in a game, you got to play against somebody. And then, again, goes back to that word, you got to play.
For sure. And I mean, looking back, you know, when I used to hit, there'd be times where I'd hit 50 baseballs, and then I'd go, I don't even know what I just hit.
Right.
You know, I didn't watch the ball. I wasn't looking to learn. I was just, I put in the work, so now I got to go there. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't work that way. Like the power of now, you got to be present and quality practice. So
thanks.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the mindset of the athlete today that we're dealing with, and the complexities of what we're dealing with, the variety of what we're dealing with. How do you really be able to manage your communication with each individual athlete to get the best results, whether it's in the weight room or with Logan or Hunter when you're doing the mental visualization that you're doing with the entire team? What are you seeing as far as like the makeup of the athletes? Where are their struggles, or what are the complexities of getting through some kids that maybe you don't feel like you're getting anything out of them? Like just kind of speak a little bit, like what's the athlete kind of today that we're dealing with?
I think for starters, you gotta have a really quality relationship with each individual, because then that's gonna allow you to like figure out what makes them tick. So obviously you gotta have the coach player relationship, and you want that to be really strong for them to trust that. For them to trust you in knowing that like you really care about them and want them to get better as a player. But you also got to have that personal side to it too, because that's really where you figure out what makes them tick, and that's like whether it's their motivations as far as like their goals, or maybe it's coming stuff from they have a family motivation, whatever the case is. But when you have that quality off the court or off the field, off the diamond relationship, that's going to allow you, I think, to coach them even better, even harder, push them even more, because they're going to trust you, and you also know what makes them tick.
I think you hit it. They want to know that you care.
Right.
And that's the biggest thing, is these kids want to know that you care, and they're not just a number. They're not just a player. They're more than a player. And there's somebody in there. And so I think that's the biggest thing, is making sure that, I go about my business that day, showing that I care about each person, and I do my best. Not every day, but I do my best every day to shake each person's hand and tell them, hey, let's have a great day today.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you do that enough. And I remember when I was playing, like, coach came up to me and said, what's up? Like, man, he cares about me.
Right.
And that made me feel good. So to me, that's the biggest thing, is like getting these kids to buy into just the trust and being great teammates. And it's not about the outcome. It's really about that process and enjoying the journey and getting back to playing.
And like along with that too, the word that came to mind to me as you were like saying that is like they want to feel valued, right?
For
like
sure.
People in general, we all want to feel valued, I think, especially like the world today. We got 7 billion or almost like 8 billion people on earth. And then you have the social media component. Like, how old are you?
25.
Okay. And I'm I just turned 30. So like we're still internet was super early when we were coming up and playing sports, right? Like we had it, and there was social media like MySpace and AIM and all that stuff, but it wasn't where it is today, right? And I do think the social media being just so integrated in everybody's life now, with this, making a generalization, with this generation of people coming up, of young adults coming up, is like most of them are on social media. And social media in a lot of regards it's a social game, right? It's about like who has more followers or get more likes, and you get that little dopamine, boost or whatever. And that makes you feel valued, is what it does at the end of the day. And that was a little bit of a ramble, but like just tying it back, you have to make the individual feel valued for them, which goes back to what you said. They got to know that you care. Like they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Definitely.
Shout out to whoever said that. That's not my quote.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is different, and I totally understand you have to have a relationship, and I try to work on relationships by serving in any capacity, whether it's simple as like helping them with their financial aid or escorting them to the Hanley Center to make sure they can be comfortable with the process over there. And that's important. You show that, and then you can dig a little deeper as far as giving information. Now, as a coach, I've had times where I'm like, I feel like I'm speaking to a wall. They're not listening. And I had a past player, and I've been coaching 20 years here, so I had a past player from 2007, my first winning team, and he repeated a quote I gave them back in 2007. I don't remember the quote, but he remembered it, and he said it right in front because I had the same conversation. I feel like no one's listening. And then he repeated the whole quote. And he goes, you know where I got that quote? I'm like, no, from you. It was a quote from someone else, but I presented it to him. And I actually used to give them quotes that they would take before games, and then they put in their sock. That it meant something about whatever it was in the day. And then I would ask him to memorize it, and he did. But I would never have known. And he tells me this like 12 years later, 2 kids in, married kind of thing. And he still has it today. Do you ever feel like you guys are like speaking to some of the kids and they're just not listening? It's just kind of like not there. And what's that like? And how do you deal with that kind of situation?
Absolutely. I think a lot of the time too, it's maybe I'm not listening or maybe I'm not asking the right questions for them to not open up and talk to me. Because sometimes, hey, we know more, we're older, we're more experienced, and listen to me. But at the end of the day, some people are going to put up walls and not want to hear that. And so it's almost like the old philosophy of like being inferior, right? Being below them and almost approaching it like, hey, I'm here to help you if you want it. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to force it on you. And that's kind of the approach that I've learned from Scott is like that self-discovery of self-guided discovery. And it's genius. I mean, to have these kids go about their day of where they can go discover what they want to learn and with their swing, with their pitching or whatever it is. And I'm more of a crutch for them versus, hey, listen to me, da-da-da-da-da. I'd rather have it be like they come to me. And I learned that from Scott, and I think it's very powerful.
I love that. And I like what you're talking about and what Dave talked about too. Like that's servant leadership right there, right? Like we're here to serve you to help you get better. Like that's literally our role as coaches. And you have to communicate with them in a way, with any type of person, whether they're a player or another individual somewhere else, in a way that they're going to hear the message. And you don't always hear the message. Like we're not perfect. We probably have that too, whether it's with the players or our spouse or our other boss or whatever the case may be. Like we don't always hear the message, and maybe we're just not in the mind frame or it wasn't communicated well. And you just have to share the quote and hope that they hear it and can reference it 20 years from then. And like, that is something. And I think along with that too, it's, I referenced like social media earlier, but really like with technology in general, with the internet, there's just more information available. Like what you're saying needs to be valuable to them in that moment, or they need to see how it's valuable to them, because there's just so much information. Like, okay, this is like 1 in a million things. So how do I know that this is actually important for me to retain?
Yeah. I think the questions are really important too. The questions we ask them, because then that leads to, if we're listening, we're truly engaged in that conversation. And now we know how we can help them just by those questions. So
I have another video to show you. Now, just kind of dissect it. Like it could be, there's probably good content, but you can also destroy it. But I think it's worth listening to. So let's watch this video and then dissect it a little bit.
There's something called the rule of 100. A rule of 100 states that if you spend 100 minutes in any discipline in a year, which is about 18 minutes a day, any discipline, playing the violin, karate, MMA fighting, deep sea diving, whatever, pick the discipline, 18 minutes a day, you will be better than 95% of the world's population in that discipline. That doesn't mean you're going to win an MMA title. It doesn't mean you'll be the best violin player, but you'll be better than 95% of the world's population. It's consistency. Imagine this. If my kid is 8 years old and I say, Charlie, every day for 18 minutes, we're going to work on soccer. And next year, we're going to do that with the piano. And next year, we're going to do that with meditation. And next year, by the time my kid's 30, he's going to be Jason Bourne. Imagine if you do that at 45 years old till you're 70. It's the compounding effect of life, man.
There's a lot there. You'll be master of none. No Jason Bourne, but I get the logic to an extent. What are your thoughts on that?
Man, I agree with that. I think like it's funny. I literally was just reading about a coach, and I can't remember his name, but he was the strength and conditioning coach for the Lakers for a while. He didn't have like a really whatever the word is, renowned background or anything like that. He just happened to get the job because every couple of months he would email a ton of strength and conditioning coaches, see if he could come visit or like go watch a session, and then follow up a couple months later, which is what this guy's talking about. You're the 20 minutes. It's the sense of like you're doing just a little bit more than 95% of the population. And that was the point this guy was making, that it led to him getting the job as a strength and conditioning coach. So I definitely agree with that. And whether it's, you know, Jason Bourne's style on a bunch of things or on one thing, that's 10,000 hours, right? It goes back to that.
That consistency. I would agree with that.
What techniques have you guys given the student athletes here at PC or anywhere about how to be more productive in their lifts or in their training or what have you?
That just made me feel like I'm not doing a good job, honestly. I don't think that's something I've shared enough, honestly. Speaking for myself, like I like to plan out my things that I'm going to do the week, like for the whole week on Sunday. And then throughout the week, I have in my phone, my little notes app, like I'll write stuff and I basically segment it into the different areas of my life. My personal life, PC men's basketball, health, fitness, and wellness department, and then my business that I have on the side. And I try to like segment it like that. I don't think I've done a good job sharing that with the guys, but that's a good idea.
Yeah, and maybe that's the way we take this. What do you guys do to plan your week? I think that's brilliant. Do it on a Sunday. Plan your whole week. I mean, a lot of effective people do that. They plan for the week. In some, like when I was doing a plant-based diet, I was cooking for the week because you have to, because it's all prep.
Yeah.
And because you don't have time during the week to do that. So same meal for five, 6 straight days before you do it again. So Hunter, what do you do that's effective in your life that gives you, you know, discipline and, you know, effectiveness with the things you have to accomplish?
Definitely. I'm really big on a morning routine. And I don't think that it needs to be in such a way, like I used to put so much pressure on myself to wake up at 5 a.m. regardless of when I went to bed. And now I've kind of discovered, hey, like I'm not fully functioning. I'm not present when I do that, right? That whole next day, I'm kind of out of it versus let me get that sleep. So now I'm allowing the natural rhythms of my body. Like, hey, if I need more sleep, I'm going to take a little more sleep. Or if I need to get up early, I will. But I'm just listening to my body more. But that morning routine definitely consists of some sort of mindfulness. Just quiet, you know, kind of getting rid of all the distractions, the social medias, the TVs. And then I like to put something good in my mind. So whether that's reading, watching a YouTube video, a motivational or something, you know, that input, what input am I putting to get a better output? And then exercise. I think movement is huge. I think that we're meant to move. I don't think we're meant to sit around all day and be stagnant. It's that energy. And when you're tired, it's like, I don't want to go work out. But when you work out, what happens?
We're energized.
You're energized and you feel good. So I make sure that I move and do some sort of exercise. Now, when I was playing, that was 5 days a week of intense weightlifting, doing some yoga, some recovery, some stretching. Now it's just 3 days in the weight room. But on those other days, I'm going on a 2 to 5 mile walk or doing yoga or going on a hike on the mountains, like just getting outside, getting some sunshine, and then drinking lots of water. So hydrating in the morning. And that's typically like the 4 pillars that I try to focus on every morning. And since I've changed those morning routine habits, I've noticed that the rest of my day's more like I'm more in tune with my day. I don't feel rushed. I don't feel pressured. Like now I have time to go, you know, if I want to hang out with a friend or, you know, go see my family, I'm able to do that because I've gotten it out of the way. And not that I want to get it out of the way, but I've made it a priority to take care of me first. So then I can go take care of and help others. So that's the routine that I stick to. And I've had a few kids ask me, I haven't really told the kids that, like all of them, but I've had a few of them ask me, and you know, I pointed them, hey, this is kind of the direction that I went. Let me know if you have any questions.
Staying in line with the kind of mental health, what are you doing currently, or what would you suggest for today's student athlete to work on like how to find mental health. Like I try everything. I used to run like 6 miles a day every day, to changing my diet, to change, the chemicals that are in my body. That was huge for me. Cold plunges, the Wim Hof method. Now I'm doing power. Now I'm constantly trying to navigate different ways to feel good, so I can help others. What do you guys do? I know, Hunter, you already mentioned some. Logan, I know you're into a lot of cool things with the mental side. What are you doing? Do you do breathing? Do you do what do you do to help rest your brain from this crazy world we live in?
Yeah, no, well, I love that you talked about routines. Like, so my morning routine is wake up, meditate for 10 minutes. The first 5 minutes is just like breath work, just focusing on my breath, getting myself into the present moment. And then the last 5 minutes, and it's like roughly 5, right? Because I just set a timer and just go. But the last 5 or so are just gratitude time, like saying thank you for a ton of different stuff. Because that's like what you're talking about, right? Putting good stuff into your head so you can have better outputs. Well, gratitude is a extremely easy way and impactful way to get your mind in that like really positive state. It's hard to be mad when you're feeling thankful about stuff, so I'll meditate, I'll do gratitude. I'm in grad school right now, so I've done a terrible job actually of like reading a personal book in the morning. But before I was in grad school, I would try to read a book for like 10 minutes, and then learn a language. So Duolingo, highly recommend.
That's
Duolingo.
awesome,
dude. Duolingo's the one. And 5 to 10 minutes, whatever, like a lesson is about 5 minutes, right? So
18 minutes a day, man.
Yeah. And try to do that. Again, I've done a bad job this last year, and no excuse, I've just done a bad job doing it, of maintaining that routine. But that was my routine for a really long time, was doing that, because learning a language is good for helping overall cognition and memory. And then especially when you're getting older, I'm always interested in like Alzheimer's. I'm super interested in that. So learning a language is a really good way to kind of fend off Alzheimer's, because it just keeps your mind super active.
Yeah, and I think also, being able to experience different cultures, like this fall or winter, I went down, I put it on my intention list in 2020 to go to Tulum, Mexico, and I finally was able to go. And, they took us on a tour to Chichen Itza, and we went to the very first church that was built in Mexico. And when the Spanish came over, and to be able to converse with those people, I remember in high school, like, I don't want to take this serious, Spanish 1, this waste of my time. But now I would be like, how cool would it have been to be able to talk to people there? So I'm very intrigued by that idea. I think I might take up another language.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm going to just throw this out too, especially because you're a baseball guy. Do you know Tyler Gillum?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So I had connected with him through some other stuff, but like listening to his podcast and whatnot, I learned about the growth toolbox that he did. Tried to implement it this year with our guys. It just was really hard. I learned to do in season. It really needs to be done before the season. But when we're going back to Dave, your question about like how have we helped the athletes we work with become more productive or learn more productive habits, like what I learned from him with the growth toolbox is sharing those tools with them. We tried to do a schedule and help them establish routines with it. Like I said, it's just really hard to do in season, but
For sure.
like that was a great thing that I learned from him, was that growth toolbox.
And I'm always trying to figure out how can I be more effective getting through to the student athletes that come in our presence, and want to be very effective. What do you guys know about a golfer's hitch? Are you familiar? So a golfer's hitch can be developed where it ruins a golfer's game for a day, a weekend, a year, a lifetime, ends careers, all through emotional explosion in their brain that goes through their body, teaching it to perform differently. So golfers hire high-level psychologists and to help overcome those things. So if they take a swing and they mishit it and they're like, gosh dang it, and they have an emotional charge, they'll remember that swing forever because basically all the things that can be triggered from your brain producing hormones that'll remember that movement and it's called a golfer's hitch. And I don't know where I learned it or anything like that. I'm just very aware of it, and I call it a soccer hitch. It could be a baseball swing, and it could be
shooting like cold streaking.
Yeah. So we all go through these moments that requires you to control your brain at all times and control your emotions at all times. So let's talk about a little bit about emotional control. What is the value of controlling your emotions in every aspect of the game, knowing that if you become emotional, you're going to trigger emotion, which is a drug that will create memories and movement that'll change how you play, how you react, so many things. How do you control your brain when things aren't going well? Like, even for you, it doesn't have to be athletic. You have to do it at all times. So when you get into sport or practice or a game, that you're prepared. What do you guys use as far as technique? How do you control your emotions? Do you do it through breathing? What do you do to control basically your thoughts in a very emotional thing like sport?
Yeah, I think I don't know if his name's Daniel Coleman or Daniel. I don't know his last name. Forgive me, but he wrote the book Emotional Intelligence, and he talks a lot about emotional intelligence, and he came to the conclusion that emotional intelligence and adaptability intelligence prove success later on in life far greater than IQ ever will. And so, emotional intelligence, what does that mean? I personally believe that we don't want to control the emotions. Now, Daniel Goleman, awesome. I don't think we want to control them, but I also think we don't want to be owned by them, right? So I want to feel those emotions, right? If I strike out with bases loaded, if I avoid that, just be positive, or I let that fuel burn, like, hey, man, I'm not going to get beat next time in this at bat, right? However, there could be the same side of that coin where I take that at bat, I struck out, and now I walk into the dugout, I throw my stuff, I lose my temper, and now my energy is all over the place. There's no way I'm coming back from that. And so I think it's a fine line of, like, I want to feel it, right? I don't want to deny the walk-off home run that I gave up, and now I'm pissed, but I'm trying to suppress that. Like, I want to feel that so next time I can be better. Or vice versa. Like, if I win, that feels good. I want to celebrate it. Now, I also know that the next day matters, and I got to come back straight, like, I'm ready to go. And I can't waver. I can't take a day off. But at the same time, I think that it's important to feel those, because now it allows us to use them in a good way versus being owned by them. Like, for me, it was throwing helmets. I was really good at it. I'd strike out, come in, throw the helmet. And I joke with myself now, I see a kid on the other team do it, and I'm just like, stupid helmet. It's the helmet's fault, right? But it's that inability to control it. However, we still want to feel it, if that makes sense.
Thanks. I completely agree with that. It's because then it's the perspective you take with the emotion, right? Like, it goes back to having a growth mindset. If every moment is an opportunity to get better, then whether it's positive or negative, it's just a matter of how you look at it. You know what I mean? And you can, because emotions are good. Sometimes when you have that negative thing that happens, you can draw on it as a motivating tool if you take that perspective. And you have to be it's helpful to be present for that, so you can take advantage of it. So I think meditation, I mean, I'm a super big advocate of meditation because I've seen what it's done for my life. And it gets you, aside from like the physiological benefits, which are tied to the mental ones too, it just makes you more aware of what's happening right now. And that could be your emotional state, or it could be your thoughts, and the two that interplay. I don't know if you guys have ever read Joe Dispenza.
Oh, yeah.
Love Joe Dispenza.
Yeah.
I read Becoming Supernatural. So when he's talking
Mind blown.
bro, like with the way he's talking about what you talked about, where it's like emotions are a chemical imprint of a moment that happened. Yep. And it's like, when you change your perspective on it, you can make it a more positive chemical imprint. And if you don't, then you can make it a more negative. And that's why meditation is such a good tool to help you be aware of your thoughts, because of the interplay thoughts have with emotions. And there's so many different meditations. Like, you can do breath, just literally focusing on your breath. You can do sound meditations where you're just trying to be aware of that sound that's happening around you, or something that's in front of you visually, or thinking about a specific thing, so you hone in on the focus piece. Like, so many different styles of meditation, of exercises pretty much. But they're great tools to help you take advantage of those emotions.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's legal. I always say legal steroids. Like when you have an emotion, you're having adrenaline produced by your body. Now you can either harness it and use it for something, whether it's recovery, having the energy to hit that last second shot, or the last at bat or whatever in the ninth inning. If you can harness it and save it to use it for something that's of value, I totally agree, Hunter. It's you want emotion. I've always said that, like, you want that emotion. Can you harness the emotion? Yep. Can you accept it? And it's with nerves too. So let's talk a little bit about nerves and what happens. Like, you have adrenaline dumps. Why does an adrenaline dump happen? And which cause major fatigue versus those that accept it, the spotlight, and take that adrenaline that's produced and be able to use it for something special. And part of that's like going through breathing and those things, preparing for those moments. But if you're always accepting, because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to feel those. No, you do. Yes, you do. And they're not told that. You don't hear that from old school coaches and stuff. You don't hear it.
Play fearless, right?
Yeah.
Play fearless.
Yeah.
I was telling a kid last night, I'm like, dude, you do not want to be fearless. Like, everybody has fear. And if they say they don't, then they're probably afraid of being afraid, It's like, I think back to my career when I was, 10, kids throwing 62. I was scared of the ball. And I'm 22 facing guys throwing 95. I'm scared of the ball. But I think that fear is good because now it allows us, like you said, that nerve, that adrenaline. I think that's a hyper-focused state, right? Because now we're able to really concentrate and use that. It's like fight or flight, right? Mm-hmm. That fear starts to kick in. Oh, boy, what's going to happen? We're uncertain. And I think becoming one with that feeling versus, like, trying to suppress it and deny it and, hey, get out of here. Like, no, that's a good feeling. Now, how can I use it to be my best self on the field or even off the field?
Why is fear a bad thing? Why does it have a negative connotation? Obviously, we understand there are negative aspects of it, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
You can recognize it and identify it and then just turn it into something positive if you want.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. The and I tend to say, if I was 19 again, I'd be one of the best players in the world, just from knowledge.
Same.
It's true. Knowledge is huge, especially when you coach. You like when you're coaching and dissecting the game, you're a different human being. And if I was at the point of, if I was 19 and I played pro ball, I played Division I soccer and all that, but my mental side was not there. My technique wasn't there. My understanding of the game wasn't there. But if I went back and I was 19 again, I'd be a different athlete. And I think players have to understand that. I always had, like, the young players don't want to listen. Not all of them, but they're not understanding. We've been there, and you need to listen to your elders and dissect the information given and be able to learn quickly. And that's a problem. So I would always say, hey, I would talk to one of my players. I'm like, are you better than a 25-year-old you? And the answer would be no. Okay. Would you listen to a 30-year-old you? Yes. Okay. I'm a 48-year-old you. Listen. You play the same position.
I like that.
Just, you don't have to accept everything I'm hearing, but you need to find a way to steal as much information as you can from me. Steal. And then steal from someone else. Always pay attention to your elders and steal information. That's how you grow.
Yeah, and John Huizinga over at the Fuel Factory, we believe that he believes that success leaves clues, and you want to study those that have done what you want to do or and the ambition of what you want to do. Like, study those people. That's to me that's what I'm gonna do.
And when you do that, when you study it, you're contextualizing it for you, right? Like, I love what you just said right there with the players that you coach for. You're like, would you listen to a 25-year-old, 30-year-old? I'm a 48-year-old you. Like, yeah. Listen. That's brilliant because it's like you're priming their mind to contextualize the information you're about to share with them. Yeah, I don't know if you guys know Gary Vaynerchuk. Love Gary V. So he'll talk about, right, like, I don't remember his quote, but it's basically if content is king, like, context is whatever's higher than king. And it's like, the content is extremely important, but if it's not contextualized, they're not going to hear the message. And I'm definitely taking that. I'm stealing that, like you said.
And that's why we have these podcasts, and that's why it intrigued me about bringing you guys in. I want to bring you in a lot because there's so much conversation to be had. And when you talk like this, especially with open minds to be able to share information, it triggers your brain to be like, oh, I could do that. You steal. We need to steal much information as possible, whether people are still on YouTube or whatever. I think it's so valuable to have. Now, what have you stolen as far as information from the younger generation? Because they have a lot to offer too, because they've stolen information from other elders, we'll call them, and they've received information. Have you ever stolen information from them? And as you're thinking about it, I stole from a player. About 15 years ago, there was a player that went to Argentina and trained with a World Cup champion from Argentina from the or whenever Maradona won it in the 80s. And he showed me how to position yourself and transition all your weight to the front foot to take impact. I had no idea. And I was like 31. And I'm like, I had no idea. And my career's over. I'm like, I wish I knew this.
Yeah.
Like, it was crazy. Like, he showed me the technique. You're a brick wall. And if someone's flying at you, you can shuffle your feet, put all your weight on your front foot. And if you time it right, shoulder to shoulder, you'll become a brick wall and they will be hurt. And I'm like, what the heck? And I stole that information from someone I trained, and they gave me a pathway where I showed a lot of players how to do this. One of which was Kiana Miyazato, who we told the story just in a previous podcast, how we're playing Pinnacle High School, and this girl went full speed into her. She put all her weight in her front foot and broke the girl. She was hurt, out of the game, and it was a foul on her, not Kiana, the player that went full speed into her, and she just transitioned her weight.
Wow.
It was a simple technique that I had no idea, and I learned it from a younger person. What information have you received from the younger you?
Younger me or
athletes,
yeah.
Anyone you're working with?
Yeah, just doing lessons over at the Fuel Factory. They range from, kids that are, my youngest that I work with is 6, all the way up to 18-year-old seniors in high school, and then obviously the college guys. And I was working with a kid probably about 3 months ago, and it kind of like you said, you're talking to a brick wall, and it wasn't getting through to him. And I was like, why is he not listening? And then I started asking myself, what can I do better to get to help get across what he needs to hear? And as that's happening, I'm like thinking, this is a horrible drill. He's not having fun. And then I'm like, all right, scratch this. We're gonna play a game. And it was like a target kind of game. Like, hey, hit the ball here, hit the ball there. You get that many points. You get that many points. And he went from rolling over every single ball. And I'm like, stay inside the baseball, hit it up the middle, this is how the pros hit. And then when I put those targets out there, boom, 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 he's rocking them. And I'm like, it's a game. He wants to play, and I'm making it boring. So that was really key for me, is to learn, yes, we got to have the drills, we got to have that stuff. But I think the playing aspect of, you disappear and you're just one with the game. And that was huge for me, because now every lesson that I do is based around having fun in games. And yeah, we're going to get better, but we're also going to have some objectives and purpose behind this of why it's going to work. Because being able to direct where you're going to hit the baseball, I don't think that you need to hit it as hard as you can every time, right? And that's counterintuitive to launch angle, exit velo, yada, yada, yada. I think you need to hit it where they're not. And if they're playing the shift, you be able to put the bat on ball and go that way. You win. You didn't have to hit it 1,000,000 miles an hour. And so I think that was a huge learning for me as far as where I go with coaching, is just making an environment that's fun.
Mm-hmm. Definitely agree with that. I think for me, the example that comes to mind is actually a guy who's graduating off our team, Mike Rogers. Like, the way he does in and out dribbles with a change of speed is just incredible to me. And that's something I've kind of studied over him the last year and a half, when I became mindful of it, is just man, the way that before he goes to his in and out, he'll slow down. And then as soon as that ball hits the ground, he uses that kinetic energy from the ball to like re-accelerate. And that's something that's been super cool for me to learn. So that kind of speaks to what you were talking about.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated with learning. And I remember learning the reverse step over from a player who I was doing an indoor training session. And I'm more of a technical coach. I'm not tactics. I've never been too excited about, because when you don't have technique, it doesn't matter. So you got to be competent. And I always found myself early years of coaching is they can't trap the ball, they can't escape pressure, they don't have the tools to be able to problem solve. And this one player is coaching. He's like, my brother, who he was a national team player, U16s out of New York, and he happened to be here. His parents divorced and they're split apart. And he said, yeah, my brother can do, he said, my brother can do a 1-footed rainbow. I'm like, what the heck is that? 1 foot, like how? And he couldn't do it, but he was kind of like demonstrating what it would look like, but he couldn't do it. I'm like, impossible. But I'm like, I kept trying and trying and trying. And a year goes by. I'm a PE teacher, and we have these red bouncy balls in PE. And I was trying to do it with that, and I did it. And I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, it's possible. And now, I mean, I was, without anyone showing me, just someone told me. Now I can do like 7 different 1-footed rainbows just through probably 5 years of endless of trying to figure it out. And it's crazy. Like, but if I had a coach that say, hey, here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, you would be able to do it. And even this podcast, I'll put a video in here that'll show me doing it. I was 230 pounds.
Dang. Wow.
So you'll get to see the big me. But that's another podcast. But yeah, it's and I encourage that as you guys coach is always be fascinated with technique and learning every little thing, because the players that we have, a lot of them have information that we want to take. How'd you learn? And I get, a lot of them learn through, they're just ingrained in it. Like a lot of the players I have, they have 50,000 hours of playing soccer, 6v6, 4v4, adult league, all that at 10. Can't teach that, but specific techniques on shooting and stuff like that. They have information. I think there will be, a relationship there too, building if they're teaching us.
Right.
And so we're able to teach them.
Definitely. The yin and the yang effect.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Let's do this often, and then I'll create or you guys come up with topics and stuff. And I think it's so beneficial to have something like this nonstop and have conversation so we can be better coaches and educate others online.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
No, thank you guys so much. And we'll be back with another amazing crew. We'll be back. We got to come with the name of the show. We'll figure it out. It'll be in the front overlay of the show. But this is Phoenix College Podcast coming to you from the cave, I guess, cave podcast room. We'll see you guys next time.